In Britain, there is a word for a digger, not excavator, not backhoe, not earth mover, just JCB. Ask a 5-year-old in Manchester what the big yellow machine on the building site is called. JCB. Ask a farmer in Devon. JCB. Ask a civil engineer in Glasgow with 30 years on the job. JCB. The name is in the Oxford English Dictionary, not as a trademark, as a noun, a common noun, lowercase, meaning any machine that digs. No other living British industrialist has had their initials absorbed into the language itself. Not Rolls, not Royce, not Dyson. And behind those 3 letters is a man most people have never heard of, a welder from a market town in Staffordshire who rents a garage smaller than a modern living room, buys a second-hand welding set for £1, and builds his first product out of scrap metal left over from the Second World War. He sells it the same afternoon for £45. 80 years later, his initials sit on the side of more construction machines than any other name in British history. The company he starts in that garage turns over more than £6 billion a year. It has never been listed on a stock exchange. It has never left the family. This is the fascinating story of JCB, the garage welder who invented the modern digger. His name is Joseph Cyril Bamford. He is born in 1916 in Rocester, a quiet market town in Staffordshire, with a population smaller than a football crowd. His family are not strangers to engineering. The Bamford name is already stamped on agricultural machinery through Bamford's Limited, a family firm that builds hay balers and threshing equipment for farms across the Midlands. Joseph grows up around steel and workshops, the way other boys grow up around school books. He takes a position at Alfred Herbert Limited in Coventry, one of the most respected machine tool companies in England. He learns precision engineering. He learns what good manufacturing discipline looks like from the inside. But he also learns something else. He learns that he does not want to spend his life building machines for someone else. The war ends. Britain is exhausted. The factories that built Spitfires and Lancasters are winding down. The government is selling off mountains of surplus military equipment for almost nothing. And Joseph Bamford sees an opportunity that nobody else is paying attention to. On the 23rd of October, 1945, 2 things happen in Rocester. Joseph Bamford's wife gives birth to a son named Anthony, and Joseph rents a 12 by 15-foot garage for 30 shillings a week. He buys a second-hand welding set for £1 from a local supplier, clears a space on the concrete floor, and starts cutting into a pile of war surplus scrap. The idea is a tipping trailer. Farmers need equipment. The country needs to feed itself. And the military has left behind thousands of parts that nobody wants. Bamford takes wheels originally built for Grumman Hellcat fighter aircraft and hubs designed for field howitzers and welds them together with a simple hydraulic tipping mechanism. 1 farmer, 1 trailer. Load it, haul it, dump it. No second man required. He takes the finished trailer to the Rocester market that same afternoon. He sells it for £45. That is a return of £44 on a £1 investment in a single day. He builds another one, then another, then 6 at a time. Then he cannot build them fast enough. Within 3 years, Joseph Bamford moves out of the garage and into a small factory. Within 5, he has a real workforce. Within a decade, he is about to change the construction industry in a way that no British manufacturer has managed before or since. In 1951, Bamford makes a decision that seems small at the time, but proves to be one of the sharpest branding moves in British industrial history. He paints all of his machines yellow, bright, unmistakable, road sign yellow. At a time when most British machinery ships in green or gray or bare metal, Bamford wants his equipment visible from across a muddy field. He wants a farmer or a foreman to look at a site and know instantly that the machine doing the work is a JCB. It is a branding decision disguised as a practical one. It works brilliantly, but the product that changes everything arrives 2 years later. In 1953, Joseph Bamford builds the Mark I excavator loader. It is the world's first backhoe loader. The idea is deceptively simple. Take a hydraulic excavator arm and mount it on the rear of a wheeled tractor that already carries a front-loading bucket. 1 machine, 2 ends, 2 functions, 1 operator. Think about what construction looks like before this machine exists. A small building contractor who needs to dig a trench and shift the spoil away requires 2 separate machines and 2 separate operators, burning fuel in both, paying wages for both, maintaining both through winter. Or one machine and a team of men with shovels standing in the rain, digging by hand in clay that fights them with every stroke. Either way, the economics punish the small firm. The big contractors can afford fleets of dedicated excavators and dedicated loaders. The one-man operation cannot. Bamford's backhoe loader changes the equation overnight. A single contractor with a single machine can now dig a foundation, load a lorry, grade a surface, and backfill a trench without leaving the cab. The machine pays for itself faster than any piece of equipment on the site because it replaces everything else. One driver, one set of keys, one monthly payment. That is not an improvement. That is an entirely new category of machine. By 1957, Bamford refines the concept further with the Hydra Digger, a machine that combines greater digging depth with a more powerful front loader. The backhoe loader is no longer a curiosity. It is becoming the standard tool on every small to mid-sized building site in Britain. And Joseph Bamford is not just an engineer, he is a showman. Perhaps the greatest showman British manufacturing has ever produced. In 1961, he buys one of the first Learjets in Europe. Not for himself, for his customers. Bamford flies potential buyers to the factory in Rocester, Staffordshire, where a stretched Cadillac meets them on the tarmac. They are driven to the factory floor, walked through the assembly line, and given the kind of personal treatment that no other British equipment manufacturer is offering. He is not selling machines. He is selling an experience. He is selling the feeling that JCB is not a small company from a market town. It is something altogether larger. He delivers the first 100 machines personally, in a Rolls-Royce, with his own personalized number plate. Think about that. The founder of the company, driving to the customer's yard in a Rolls-Royce, handing over the keys to a digger. That is not a delivery. That is a performance. The customer does not just buy a machine. He enters a relationship. And then there are the dancing diggers. Bamford commissions operators to choreograph his backhoe loaders into synchronized performances. The machines bow, spin, stack pallets, pour champagne into glasses with hydraulic precision. It sounds absurd. It is absurd. And it is also one of the most effective pieces of marketing in industrial history. In 1999, a team of dancing JCB diggers performs at a trade show in Las Vegas and reportedly stops the gamblers mid-hand. The machines become celebrities in their own right. But Bamford's genius is not limited to spectacle. He understands something about loyalty that most British manufacturers in the 1960s are about to learn the hard way. In 1967, at a time when labor relations across British industry are heading toward a decade of strikes, shutdowns, and confrontation, Joseph Bamford stands on a farm cart in front of his entire workforce and hands out personal checks. Not a bonus scheme, not a management incentive program. Personal checks, signed by the founder, totaling £250,000. The gesture is extraordinary, and it buys something that money does not normally buy in British manufacturing. It buys loyalty. Through the strike-dominated 1970s, when factories across the Midlands shut down for weeks at a time and production lines go cold, JCB keeps running. Reports from the era suggest that JCB workers are as much as 7 times more productive than the average British manufacturing employee. The company wins 7 Queen's Awards for export. 7. No other construction equipment maker in Britain comes close. At a time when British industry is becoming a punchline on the world stage, JCB is becoming a global brand. By the mid-1970s, JCB is the dominant construction equipment manufacturer in Britain. The backhoe loader is the best-selling machine of its kind in the country. The yellow paint is on building sites from Scotland to Singapore. The name is becoming synonymous with digging itself. Joseph Cyril Bamford has taken a 1-pound welding set and a pile of scrap metal and turned them into the most recognizable industrial brand in British history. And then he walks away. In 1975, at the absolute peak of his power, Joseph Bamford does something that defies every instinct of the industrial founder. He hands the company to his 2 sons, Anthony and Mark. He does not step back into an advisory role. He does not keep an office at the factory. He does not hover over the boardroom table offering opinions on Tuesdays. He moves to Switzerland, permanently. The man who built JCB from a 1-pound welding set and a pile of surplus scrap becomes a tax exile on the shores of Lake Geneva. He is 59 years old. He has 7 Queen's Awards on the shelf. He has his initials in the dictionary. He has a workforce that would walk through walls for him because he once stood on a cart and handed them personal checks worth £250,000. And he leaves all of it behind. Not because the company is failing, not because his sons force him out, not because a buyer arrives with a number too large to refuse. He simply decides he is finished. That is the strange part. Most founders who build something of this scale cannot let go. They cling, they meddle. They return from retirement the moment someone moves a filing cabinet. Joseph Bamford does none of that. He moves to Switzerland and starts designing boats. He builds diesel engines in his workshop. He solves mechanical problems for the pure pleasure of solving them, the same instinct that put a welding torch in his hand in 1945. But now, without the pressure of a company, a workforce, or a reputation to maintain. He spends 26 years in Switzerland. He does not write a memoir. He does not give interviews. He does not appear at industry events to collect lifetime achievement awards. The most flamboyant salesman British manufacturing has ever produced goes completely silent. The departure is not without consequence. Anthony and Mark Bamford eventually disagree on the direction of the business, and the family divides. Mark leaves to start his own venture. Anthony stays. He is the son born on the 23rd of October, 1945, the same day as the company. Whether that is coincidence or destiny depends on what you believe. What is not debatable is what Anthony does next. Joseph Cyril Bamford dies on the 1st of March, 2001, at a clinic in London. He is 84 years old. His body is not taken back to Uttoxeter, not to the market town where he sold his first trailer, not to the factory in Rocester that he built with his own hands. He is buried in Glion, Switzerland. His headstone carries no epitaph, no dates, no list of achievements, just the JCB logo. 3 letters on a stone, in a foreign country, far from the garage where they were first welded into steel. That is how a founder says goodbye. But this is not a story about a company that collapses when its founder walks out the door. This is where the second half begins. Because the son born on the same day as the company is about to build it into something that even Joseph Bamford, for all his showmanship, might not have imagined. Anthony Bamford takes control of JCB at the age of 30 and inherits a company that dominates Britain but barely registers on the global stage. His father built the brand. Anthony is about to build the empire. In 1977, he launches the Loadall, a telescopic handler that does for material handling what the Backhoe loader did for digging. The Loadall can lift, extend, and place loads at heights and reaches that a conventional forklift cannot match. On a building site, it replaces the crane for most low-rise lifting tasks. On a farm, it replaces 3 or 4 separate machines. The formula is pure Joseph Bamford, whether Anthony recognizes it or not. One machine, multiple jobs, smaller crew. 2 years later, Anthony makes the decision that defines his era. He takes JCB to India. In 1979, JCB opens a joint venture in India that eventually becomes a wholly owned subsidiary. The factory at Ballabgarh in the state of Haryana grows into the single largest backhoe loader manufacturing plant on Earth. India does not just become a market, it becomes the market. By the 2000s, JCB holds more than 70% of the Indian backhoe loader segment. In a country that is building roads, dams, airports, and entire cities at a pace the world has rarely seen, the yellow machines are everywhere. And something remarkable happens. In India, just as in Britain, the word JCB becomes generic. Construction workers do not ask for an excavator, they ask for a JCB. The same 3 letters that entered the Oxford English Dictionary in London enter everyday language in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bangalore. A brand born in a 12 by 15-foot garage in Staffordshire becomes the default word for its product in 2 of the world's largest economies. That is not market share. That is cultural penetration. Anthony Bamford is knighted in 2002 and later elevated to the House of Lords as Baron Bamford. He founds the JCB Academy in Rocester, an engineering school that trains young people in the kind of hands-on, workshop-first mechanical education that his father learned 2 generations earlier. The message is deliberate. The Bamford family does not believe in purely academic pathways. They believe in making things. In 2006, Anthony commissions the Diesel Max, a streamlined car powered by 2 modified JCB diesel engines. It sets a land speed record for diesel-powered vehicles on the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah, exceeding 350 miles per hour. The car has no commercial purpose whatsoever. It exists to prove a single point. JCB diesel engineering is the best in the world. It is pure spectacle. The same instinct that put a Learjet on the runway and a Rolls-Royce on the delivery route. The Bamfords understand theater. But the Anthony Bamford era is not without controversy. In 2000, the European Commission fines JCB €39.6 million for anti-competitive practices, specifically for restricting cross-border dealer sales and creating barriers within the single market. It is a significant penalty and a public embarrassment for a company that trades on its family reputation. And then there is Brexit. Anthony Bamford donates to the Vote Leave campaign and writes directly to all 6,500 JCB employees, explaining why he believes Britain should leave the European Union. The letter divides opinion sharply. Some see a business leader exercising his democratic right. Others see a billionaire using his workforce as a political audience. The controversy adds a political dimension to a brand that had been defined by machines, not manifestos. Through all of it, through the growth and the controversy and the decades of change, one decision remains constant. The Bamford family never floats JCB on the stock exchange. Never. Not when the company is valued in the billions. Not when private equity firms come calling with presentations and projections. Not when every comparable competitor on Earth is either publicly listed or owned by a multinational conglomerate. We covered Hilti on this channel, another family-controlled company that made the same choice to stay private, and the principle is identical. When you answer to a family instead of a trading floor, you can invest on a 30-year timeline instead of a quarterly earnings cycle. You can bet on a technology because you believe it is right, not because a shareholder presentation says it will move the stock price before Christmas. And that is precisely what JCB does. While the rest of the construction equipment industry places its chips on battery electric machines, JCB bets on hydrogen combustion. In 2021, the company wins the Royal Automobile Club Doer Trophy for its hydrogen engine development program. The wager is enormous. If hydrogen infrastructure arrives at the scale JCB anticipates, the company will be a generation ahead of every competitor. If it does not, they will have spent years and billions on a road that leads nowhere. That is the kind of decision only a private company can make, and only a Bamford would make it with a smile. Somewhere in Britain tonight, on a building site that was a green field this morning, a yellow machine sits behind a chain-link fence, with its arm folded down and its bucket resting in the mud. The paint is scratched along the boom. The hydraulic hoses are caked in dried clay. The cab has a newspaper on the seat and a paper coffee cup wedged beside the handbrake. The 3 letters on the side are faded from weather, but still legible. JCB. Tomorrow morning, a man will climb into that cab, turn the key, and start digging. He will not think about Joseph Cyril Bamford. He will not think about a 12 by 15-foot garage in Uttoxeter, or a 1-pound welding set, or a tipping trailer built from fighter plane wheels and howitzer hubs. He will not think about Rolls-Royce deliveries, dancing diggers, farm cart speeches, or a headstone in Switzerland with nothing on it but a logo. He will think about the trench he needs to finish by Friday. And the machine will do exactly what it was designed to do, exactly the way a welder from a market town in Staffordshire meant it to be done, 80 years after he struck his first arc in a rented garage on the day his son was born. JCB has never been acquired. It has never been stripped for parts by a holding company or passed through the hands of sugar conglomerates and private equity firms and faceless corporate parents the way so many great industrial names have. It was born in a family. It stayed in a family. The grandson of the man who rented that garage now helps oversee the business. That is the rarest story in British industry. Not the invention. Inventors come and go. Not the commercial success. Plenty of companies succeed for a decade or two and then get bought and hollowed out and sold for the value of the brand name alone. The rare thing is the endurance, the staying. Joseph Bamford built the machine. Anthony Bamford built the empire. Neither of them ever answered to a shareholder, a quarterly earnings call, or a private equity board. And the name on the side of every yellow digger on every building site on 4 continents is still the name of the man who started it all with 1 pound and a welding torch and an afternoon at a market in Staffordshire. That is what happens when you build something real, hand it to your children, and trust them to keep building. The garage gets bigger. The welding set becomes a factory. The factory becomes 22 plants on 4 continents and 19,000 workers and £6.5 billion a year in revenue. But the name on the machine never changes. JCB. 3 letters, 1 family, 80 years. And the digger is still digging.